Hey guys, I got something special for you today. I'm here with my uncle. I call him my uncle. He's actually my wife's uncle, but he's like an uncle to me, Ron Souza, and he's been a huge inspiration to me. Anytime we get together over holidays or family get-togethers or different events, we always end up talking about, the stuff that really matters in life, right? Your family, your fitness, and your faith. And Ron's been a huge inspiration to me in all three, and I'm excited to be here with him and just help him kick off his YouTube channel, which is all about fitness and inspiring others. And I think Ron's got a really inspirational story to tell. And so excited to be here with you, Ron. You're looking good. How you feeling? How are things going?
Feeling good, Brandon. I'm excited to be here with you as well. It's good to see you. Haven't
Yeah,
seen you since Thanksgiving, but it's always good when we get together, whether it be by you know video chat or in person or whatever. It's always a great experience. But
likewise.
but I am doing well though. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, let's just jump right into it, Ron. So for folks who don't know you and aren't familiar with your story, let's go back 5, 6 years. Why don't you kind of tell us where you started, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Well, where I started 5 or 6 years ago, I was well over 500 pounds. I had recently lost my wife to cancer, and I already wasn't in great shape at that point, but kind of spiraled after that, and I ended up moving back to New England where I grew up. After that, I was actually living in Florida, and with the intention of being closer to family, like yourselves, my daughter, and my grandchildren, and came back and through some unfortunate circumstances, I ended up being a much bigger part in my daughter and grandchildren's life than I expected. My daughter had some problems, health issues and whatnot, and I ended up having to take over. Um, Raising her kids for a little while for her, and essentially, when right about the time she was supposed to be, they were supposed to be, going back to be with her, she ended up passing away on unexpectedly. And at that point, I was still quite heavy, and I had to make a decision. Um, I was adopting these kids, and I had to make a decision for my health because I knew that I needed to be around for them, and that was really the impetus behind my getting back in shape. I was still at that point. Shortly after her passing, I believe I was probably roughly 470 pounds, very, very unhealthy, overweight. And I just started making some changes. And, just with the intention of just maybe losing a few pounds, 100 pounds or so, and trying to, just be healthier. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. And, I started implementing exercise, going to the gym, making some dietary changes and whatnot. And, fast forward to today, I've lost 315 pounds.
Wow.
Um, I'm probably and I was, a very, active. I was an athlete when I was younger. I was into bodybuilding, powerlifting and whatnot. So I was always a pretty fit, strong guy. But even now at age 58, I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in my life. And you know, I attribute that to having the motivation with what happened, but also through my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. Um, I don't believe I could have done any of this without his influence in my life. That's kind of the big takeaway right there.
Wow. So Ron, I want to kind of dive into some of the details of your transformation, but before we dive into that, you and I have talked about some of these personal things before, but I just want to say I'm so sorry that you lost your wife and your daughter. I mean, I'm married, I've got kids. I can't imagine personally what that must be like to lose family like that. So I just want to acknowledge that and just, let you know how sorry I am that you had to go through that. And clearly the Lord got you through that. I can't even imagine what that must be like or how someone deals with that. So that in and of itself, put the weight loss to the side, put the just the tremendous shape that you're in now to the side, and just the recovery you've had just to go through something like that to me is a miracle, and to me is inspiring. So
It is, and
uh,
again, that all goes back to the Lord. You know, without that faith, without having him, I felt his hand upon my life and given me the motivation to make the changes. I just don't believe I could have done it without that faith. I've clung to that, and that's what got me where I am today.
so Ron, for folks who are listening, and again, we'll come back to the weight loss in a minute, but who may be dealing with a personal tragedy, whether it's a divorce, loss of a spouse, loss of a loved one, loss of a child, just what's your message to someone who's really struggling, especially around this time of year with that sort of a loss?
There is hope. There is hope. You just gotta, for me, the main thing was to not lose sight of that. And for a while, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of felt like there was no hope. I just, that's kind of how I got so heavy. I was just, but everybody has their own ways of dealing with things. Yeah, I tend to call them hooks, and I believe that that's some people it might be drugs, some people it might be alcohol, some people it's food, some people it's I don't know, pornography. There's just so many different things that the enemy will use to attack people and to drag them down. Um, for me, it was food. That was my that was the comfort. What I what I kind of went to. When I was feeling down, and it was you're feeling happy about something. You celebrate, you eat. You're feeling bad about something, you drown your troubles in a bucket of KFC. I mean, whatever it is, and some people it's something different. It might be a bottle of Hennessy, or it might be whatever. I mean, but that's the obviously the wrong way to deal with it. And I had to come to that realization. And when I did, I was able to gather the strength through prayer and just asking God to help me to get to where I am now. Just to keep on. And the thing is, when you're as big as I was at one point, I was 540 pounds. Um, when you're that big, there's not a lot you can do. You're kind of, couch bound. I mean, I used to struggle to walk from the back door of my house to get in my car, which was 10 feet away. I'd struggle to walk from the car to the into the doctor's office or wherever I was going, and I'd be out of breath and whatever. And it's a tough situation to be in. So I sympathize with people that are in that situation. And a lot of people it's not that severe. Some people might be 50 pounds, 100 pounds overweight, but for me, the main thing that I had to come to the realization of is that you can't like look at the big picture. You just got to kind of take it down in small increments. So for me, it was the first 15 pounds, then 20 pounds, 25, and then as the weight comes off, you start making small changes in your diet, and those small changes turn into big changes, and then before you know it, you're down 100 pounds and you're able to do more things, and
Mm.
the exercise becomes easier. Now you're getting in better shape. I went from at one point being able to do one push-up to now I'm able to bang out sets of 50 and 300-400 push-ups at a time. But that didn't happen overnight. It took me some time to get to that. um but that's the key thing. It's just not trying to take it all down in one big shot. Because if you look at it from that perspective, it's just so overwhelming you'll never get started. And I think that's kind of it all starts with the first step. It all begins
Mm.
with that first step, and then you just keep stepping. You just keep pushing forward, and I'm you're gonna have setbacks. I mean, there were days where, I get on the scale and I was a couple pounds heavy, and you just can't get discouraged. It happens. Your body fluctuates naturally. So it's not going to be a downward trajectory. The entire time. It'll there'll be little bumps in the road, or illnesses, or whatever the case may be. But the key is to just keep pushing forward. That's the for me, I mean, I know not everybody would you know uh, would understand or even be interested in the faith based part of it. But for me, that was a big part. That was probably the biggest part. Just putting my trust in God, and just keep asking. Just keep asking, keep praying, and keep pushing forward. And I feel like his hand was just pushing me along the whole way, and still is.
Mm. That's awesome. So Ron, so you kind of shared about, some of the tragedies and that kind of led to the weight gain. I know for me, I have a very sedentary job. And so if I'm not intentional about, getting up, working out, eating healthy, doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing like that, but it seems like almost overnight I can gain 50 pounds. Um,
Same here. So that's exactly what happened to me. And that you actually make a good point there. I think a lot of people are guilty of the same thing. I used to hide from the scale. I would say, well, I'm busy, this, that, the other. They make every excuse not to get on the scale. Not that you want it to become your god. You don't want to be a slave to it, but the accountability is a big thing. And consistency. It's if you get on the scale, and I even now, I get on the scale at least once a week just to see where I'm at. If I see a little spike up in weight, I'll make adjustments, whether it's more cardio or make some caloric adjustments or whatever. Like right now, as you know, I just went through a major surgery, reconstructive surgery to you know, get rid of a lot of the extra tissue that I had left over after all of that weight loss. And so right there, I mean, I had to adjust my calories by over 1,000 calories a day just to compensate for not weight training and doing the cardio that I normally do, so that I'm not you know. My weight doesn't elevate, and I've been successful thus far. But that's the key: keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on with your body, and not allowing things to slip. For me, anyway.
yeah, no, I totally agree. I think you're totally right. It's like knowledge, that old saying, cliche, right? That knowledge is power. And just if you can measure it, you can manage it, right? And so
That's
just
that,
kind
oh,
of
that is a great message right there. That's if seriously, if I'm going to use that. If you can measure it, you can manage it. And that's a great mantra. That really is.
and just knowing where you're at, and even if you don't necessarily like the number, just having that, let's just say that weekly check-in at least to say, I'm going to get on the scale and it tells me whatever it tells me, and that's information, that's knowledge, that's power, that's good.
Yep.
Even if I don't like the number, even if I don't like the trend, that's good news, because bad news early is good news because I can do something about it. So I think, like you said, people, myself included, can be a little apprehensive, especially after the holidays, right? To get on the state scale and kind of see where they're at. But I
Oh,
think when you check
easy to
in,
do.
right? Oh yeah,
Check in.
absolutely.
Absolutely. I remember. I remember clearly when I stopped wearing jeans and fitted clothes, and I just resorted to track pants, whether or sweatpants or whatever, and things with ties on them and whatnot. And it's just an easy way to avoid the truth. You know,
Mm.
you start avoiding the scale. Matter of fact, I remember one time, this was several years, many years ago, probably 10 years ago, and I had lost some weight. And I had I was kind of on a little bit of a roller coaster there for a while. Lose weight, put it back on. Lose weight, put it back on. Circumstances, whatever. And I was avoiding the scale for a couple of months, and I got back on the scale, and I had gained 52 pounds. And I was just like, how did this happen? You know what I mean? But how did it happen? Because I wasn't getting on the scale, because I wasn't being accountable, because I wasn't, I was just eating, not exercising, thinking that I mean, probably knowing somewhere inside of me that this was going to be a problem, but just kind of ignoring it,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden, now you've got this big problem, and now you're just kind of, you've not only gained back the weight that you lost, but you probably, added another 30 pounds on top of that, and I think a lot of people would identify with that. It's kind of, it's human nature. You ignore. I call it putting your head in the sand, being the ostrich.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
and
yeah,
you pull your head out of the sand, and next thing you know, everything is much worse.
yeah, absolutely. And so is that how it was for you, Ron? It was like, you were starting to get kind of heavier. You had a sense that, you were putting on weight, but you were really surprised by how much it was when you finally decided to make a change, or was it you kind of just knew and you were just dealing with some things and you just couldn't deal with it right now. It just was one extra thing on your plate, or what was
I
that
I
like for you?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I think I kind of knew. But I mean, let me tell you something. There's nothing that can prepare you for 540 pounds popping up on the scale.
Mm,
That's just a big number. At the time, I think I was in maybe probably a size 64 pants. But when you're wearing, tie up pants and these, essentially, car covers for shirts, and I don't say that in jest because I don't make fun of anybody because it's a tough thing. It was very miserable for me. And the thing is, when you're that big, you try to go and buy clothes at that size. You end up in one of the, whether it's a casual male XL or a big and tall shop or whatever the case may be, and let me tell you, they take advantage of people in that situation. Everything is double, triple, quadruple the price of regular off the rack clothes. I mean, I walk in, I walk in a clothing store now. I mean, I mean, I was a 64 at one time. I'm a 33, 34 pants now. I can walk in. I don't even have to try them on. Okay, grab a pair of pants. Yep, these look good. Walk out. I know they're going to fit me. Couldn't do that. I mean, everything was an embarrassment, and even the uh the choices that you have when you're that size. Everything's stripes. Everything's these things that I wouldn't ordinarily wear, and you're just kind of stuck with that, and you just really, um, you don't have much of a choice. Even, when you're that big, your feet, like my feet would swell up. They'd be even bigger, So I'm buying four extra wide shoes and buying, shoes, a size or two bigger than I ever wore in my life. Like 14, quadruple E sneakers. I mean, even that stuff. I mean, you can get like New Balance or whatever, but anything else, you've got to go to specialty places just to get stuff like that. And it's difficult.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I wouldn't, yeah, that makes sense. Um, and just to tie it, while you're talking, just to kind of tie it back to the faith aspect, because I know that's very important to you and your transformation as well. It's
That's
um
that's that's the centerpiece. That's everything to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just thinking, that Jesus said the truth will set you free, right? And I think a lot of time, especially when we're in sin or when we know something's wrong, there is sort of that shame, that embarrassment, that guilt that causes us to avoid the truth. But sometimes you need to be in a loving way, told that hard truth in love. And if that's stepping on the scale and seeing that number and it's a shock to your system, but that's the thing that motivates you. You
The
might
tr-
not
That, that
like it,
Let me
right?
tell you
But
something, my friend. You just hit the nail right on the head. That truth will set you free because when you avoid the truth, you're just going to keep on living the lie. And or in my case, if I had continued to live the lie, I'd probably be in the ground right now. I wouldn't be here because my health was that bad. I mean, at one point, my blood pressure was probably 220 over 100 and change. I mean,
wow,
you can't keep on like that. I mean, I had chronic venous insufficiency in my legs, uh, you know, all kinds of leg wounds from the venous insufficiency. I mean, some of the stuff that I've been through. you've kind of you've seen it. It's miserable. Going having to go to wound care and whatnot to get these things. Basically, but like my legs were essentially, I mean, not to be disgusting, but like rotting off my body. Just because you get a wound and it won't heal, you don't have adequate circulation, and so when I say that I was in a really bad place, I mean I was probably very very close to my end. I mean there's I my what God has done for me is truly a miracle. It's a medical miracle because to go from where I was to being in the, I mean, the condition I'm in now, in terms of like what I'm able to do in terms of cardio and stuff like that. I mean, I've got the cardio of a very fit 25-year-old, where I was probably had the cardio of a very unfit 90-year-old,
Yeah.
a few years ago,
Yeah. Right.
which is that doesn't really really happen, but it can happen for anybody. It's just where you put your faith in the right place.
So Ron, let me ask you this. What do you think it was that was preventing you from making changes sooner? So you said you got up to 540. What do you think it was that's prevented you at 440 or 340 from saying, "Hey, I gotta stop.
Well,
I gotta get a handle on this."
well, I think it was that cyclic thing. I'd start doing better. I'd lose 100 pounds. I'd be getting better, and then there'd be some kind of setback, whether it was uh, you know I mean, just a lot of things, life, finances, marital issues. I mean, you name it. Just all these different things, all these different pressures, and sometimes a culmination of multiple fronts. I mean, realistically, probably a lot of people would call it spiritual attacks. That's what I would call it. Um, but when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it's hard to recognize what's going on,
Mm,
and it just kind of beats you down and just makes you not really care. And I think that's what a lot of people go through. They just get to the point where they're like, "God, the heck with it. I'm just going to eat whatever I want," or just binge eat and finish. You go out to dinner and you're full, but you're packing away an appetizer. Putting away a big meal. Two or three helpings of bread. Five or six sodas or whatever.
yeah,
And
yeah, for sure.
it's really easy to do. It's really easy to do. I mean, you know how I eat now, and how particular I am about everything, and that came from experience of, the experience. I've never wanted to go back down the road, that I went down before. I eat very healthy. I mean, I do enjoy my life. It's not like I never, like I'll go out to dinner with my wife and, and have a nice meal, but I don't overindulge. You know, and speaking of indulge, I mean, to coin a phrase from Arnold Schwarzenegger, Arnold, he would always say, anything more than when it like in terms of like ice cream or something like that, anything more than like a couple of spoons is an indulgence, and he's absolutely right. In other words, I could scratch that itch. Like I love chocolate ice cream. You know, have a couple spoons of chocolate ice cream and be done with it. Okay, I tasted it, or like when I was at your house at Thanksgiving. I mean, you saw what I ate. I ate mostly turkey, a little bit of mashed potatoes. Tried the desserts. Didn't I didn't, wipe out an entire pie or anything like that. A little piece of this, a little piece of that. I'm done. I get I'm over it. I mean, back when I was heavy, I had a love for, crunchy Cheetos, for instance.
Yeah,
Instead of just having a few, I'd eat the whole bag. A family size bag actually.
right.
And now, I haven't had crunchy Cheetos. I probably haven't had them in 5 years. But if I were to have that type of a snack, I'll have a handful of cheese curls or something like that. And just scratch the itch. Oh, that was good, and that's it. I'm done. I walk away. At that time, I don't think I didn't have the ability to walk away. I would just get hooked into it and just keep on shoveling them down until it was gone. It
Yeah,
just didn't have an off switch.
right. Well, I know for me too, it's like, and you mentioned this before about, kind of taking stock where you're at and then, hey, just start with the first step. Just start with the don't try to lose all the weight in one day. It took you weeks and months and years to gain the weight. You're
Right.
probably not going to get in shape overnight. But I know for myself, even kind of knowing that, right? If I start putting on weight, um, and you look at the number and you're kind of shell shocked by the number, and that can, in a way, if you let it be demoralizing, where you're almost kind of like, at this point, let's just enjoy it. Let's just enjoy the ride down, and that's the wrong attitude, but that's the attitude I know I can find myself in personally that can hold me back from making the progress that I want to make instead of looking at that number and saying, "Hey, it is what it is. This is where I'm at. This is the truth of the situation. I don't like it. Now, what's the first step? What's the first thing I'm going to do to try
That's
to
it.
tackle this? And
That's
don't
it.
worry about losing 50 pounds. Lose two. Can I
Right.
lose 2 pounds this week? What am I going to do to lose 2 pounds this week? Um, since you mentioned Thanksgiving, though, I do want to, it's a quick story for folks who are listening. So Ron comes over. We have a family get together at my house, with my wife's side of the family, and like he said, he came over for Thanksgiving. We're having a good time, and then afterwards, Ron, I remember you started going through. You're going through my fridge, you're going through my cabinets, and you're looking at, the nutrition labels on all the stuff, and you're like, "Hey,
Right.
this is garbage. You could have more protein, Brandon, you're at, let's see, 180 grams of protein. That's beginner weight. You should be doing, 220 or whatever. And you're talking about just different types of protein and how they're better absorbed by the body. And yeah, anyways, I thought for me, and we joke about it, Candace and I kind of joke about you kind of going through and kind of crapping on all that. What I thought was health food. Um, but I really appreciated it, and it was really motivational and inspirational for me. And I think as men too, one of the things that we can do is sort of encourage, but kind of challenge one another too, right?
Sure.
Right? Is
Absolutely.
like, hey, and that's why I love talking to you about fitness, about diet, about exercise, about
But
supplements.
I think for you, I mean, every time you see me, every time I come to your house, it's like I've changed to some degree. I keep getting in better and better shape every time you see me, pretty much. And
Yeah.
and for you, you being a lot younger than I am, you're like this old geezer. How does he do this? He just keeps improving himself. But that's the key. Everything I do, it's all knowledge. Knowledge is power. And I didn't learn this overnight. I mean, like, as I was into bodybuilding, for many years before, so I carry forth a lot of the knowledge that I had from before. But now there's a lot of new science out there. I mean, a lot of it's still the same thing: calories in, calories out. Carbohydrates, protein, fat. That hasn't changed. I mean, what has changed, I think, is the landscape of what is out there in terms of food quality. So you have to be a lot more careful what you pick, just because, I mean, there's just so much garbage out there. Like I told you, most, and not to crap on your choices or anything like that, but like a lot of those, like protein bars and different things you had there, you'll probably be better off eating the box that they came in than the actual product. And it's just they've just found ways to just mess with food and make it look like it might be healthy, adding a lot of different chemicals and additives and whatnot. And on paper, the calories make sense and the protein makes sense and the carbohydrates make sense, but in reality, it's not good for you. And that's something that I had to learn. I mean, for me, uh, again, it's been a work in progress. I mean, I stay away from processed foods as much as possible. I try to eat whole foods. Uh, I mean, I'm not saying I'm entirely, I mean, I do have, little snacks here and there and whatnot. And, it's impossible to just, and I wouldn't want to live like that because, I mean, there are things that I like I love peanut butter. Peanut butter is, processed to some degree. I mean, I don't eat a ton of it, but I do usually have my little peanut butter fix every day. But that keeps me from losing my marbles. It keeps me, I might have a couple tablespoons of peanut butter a day, but that's my little guilty pleasure. I mean, I try to avoid, you know, uh, you know, drinking calories is a big one. You know what I mean? It's very, I see a lot of people. I mean, and now I even try to avoid like the diet sodas and whatnot. I mean, I'll have them on the holidays, and I might have a little bit here and there. But I drink a lot of water. I still drink milk. I mean, I do like milk, low fat or whatever. Um, not a ton of it like I used to, but I still enjoy it. But I just I'm really careful with the carbohydrates that I ingest. But this is stuff that you're not going to start out like that, especially if you're starting from ground zero. From being trying to get started. It's just making those small changes initially, and then you just kind of build upon it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be it's like you said, it's you're building on it, it's incremental. And the good diet or the good workout program or the good routine that you can stick with is better than the perfect routine or perfect diet or perfect plan that you can't because
Absolutely,
it's too
absolutely.
too restrictive, right? So
Exactly. There's no way when I started this, when I started the actual fitness piece, where I started trying to get fit again. Initially, it was just diet, and because I was in such bad shape that I really couldn't exercise. And I think I've shared this with you before. I remember the first time I set foot in a gym, in a while, in probably several years, and I went in there and I wanted to, try to do a little cardio, and I was right around 500 pounds at the time, and trying to get on a life cycle, just a basic life cycle. And I was so big that I couldn't get behind the handlebars. I was, my, my stomach was out here somewhere, and and I got on there, and when I finally did manage, it was like I was trying to corner an animal or something like that, walking
yeah,
around
yeah.
it, and just trying to figure out how to get on the thing, and then on top of it, I'm conscious because other people, and when you're that big and you walk in a gym, you're gonna draw attention. So just but you just got to get past it. You're gonna get past, people. I think if anything, looking back, they're probably more like, hey, I give this guy credit, coming in here in that condition and trying to do something rather than making fun of you.
Hmm.
But so finally I figured out how to get on there. And when I got on there, 2 minutes was about all I can muster. At level one, at the, which is, you know, but it was something. And at that point, I was when I started going to the gym, and I think I had shared this with you in the past. I the gym was on the way home from dropping my grandkids off at school, and I wasn't I was actually I had a work from at home job at the time, so I was but I would go drop them off at school, and I'd have my little dog Scruffy with me, and I had two options. I could either drive straight home and just go sit there and watch TV, maybe do a little work from at home, do whatever I was going to do, or I could make the left hand turn and take the hard choice and go into the gym and avoid the Dunkin' Donuts on the way into the gym. So
Yeah, yeah.
avoid going and get a some kind of a egg sandwich or whatever, which was certainly calling out to me, maybe some hash browns or something like that. Um, so I would avoid that, go in there and do something. The thing is, once you get there, then it's once you've made that conscious choice to get in the door, then you find a few things to do. You find things you can do. Like I remember one time, the first time I tried to use this particular gym, they had a tricep extension machine, and you had to sit on it, and I could barely get on the seat and get behind the pad where you're leaning over to do the tricep extension. And when I did finally sit down, the machine almost tipped over. Talk about,
Wow.
because I was so heavy that so I had to actually kind of hold myself up and do the exercise. But I did it. Once I figured out the workaround for that, not to tip the machine over. I you know I was able to do that. So okay, so I added that to my routine. Then I could do seated cable rows. I could do that no problem because it was basically on a flat you know bench type of situation with with the foot pedals. And fortunately, I never really lost my strength, so I was able to do that at a decent weight and get some reps and get a little cardio in there and start doing that. And a little bit of time, you start with a bench press or using whatever machines I could fit on, and then just throw the cardio in. Do 2 minutes on the bike before, 2 minutes after, and then that 2 minutes turned to 4 minutes and whatever. And then I start getting a little better shape. And then at one point, we ended up buying a life cycle for the house when I had gotten in a little better shape, and I started riding that every day. Getting on there 20 minutes, a half an hour. And I tend to, as you know, I like to break my cardio up. I'm not a guy who'll sit there and drone for an hour. I'll do 20 minutes, 22 minutes 3 times a day, as opposed to sitting there for an hour. I just get too bored. I mean, I love outdoor cycling, but just sitting there staring at the wall. I mean, I do it. I'll row, or I'll do my assault bike or my climber machine. But I'm not gonna. Half an hour is about it for me. I don't really want to stay there any longer than that. I'd rather do the half an like I'll get up in the morning. I get up before I go to work. I do my little high intensity interval routine, 22 minutes of that. Five or six, intervals. I'm done. Come back, midday. When I'm off of work, get my bodybuilding routine in, whatever body parts I'm training that day. Do another 22 minutes of cardio, and out the door. Sometimes if I'm feeling really froggy, I'll throw in a third cardio of the day. Not all the time. It's not really necessary, but the thing is, starting with that, I started with 2 minutes, and then that built to 5 minutes. Before you know it, you just start getting in better shape. Same thing, like I said, with the push-ups: one push-up, five push-ups, 10 push-ups. Before you know it, you're able to do that, and whatever it is, crunches or whatever, just as long as you're diligent, as long as you're consistent, it changes, and you just get better and better, and the results just start to show.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know for myself, I can get kind of hung up on what I can't do. But it's like, well, what can you do? Can you do one push-up? Can you do, like you're saying, 2 minutes of cardio? Can you get out for a walk? Can you cut out the Dunkin' Donuts? What can you do, right? And if you
Right.
focus on that, you can kind of get into a cycle and you can kind of build on that. Ron, going back, you mentioned you kind of started out with diet first, right?
Right.
Um, so just high level, what was your diet like before? And then what sort of changes did you implement, right, as you were kind of starting out on your journey?
Oh, previously, in other words, when I was heavy, and the thing is, even there, you kind of lie to yourself. Well, oh, I don't eat that unhealthy. 'Cause at first you're trying to believe the lie. Oh, well, actually, I don't eat that bad. Well, I ate really bad. But I was just, uh, how could I mean, I think a lot of it is just snacking and just grazing is how you really, for me at least, that's how I really put on weight. You know, eating on your nerves. You've got different things. Working in the back of your head, bothering you. Could be a little different for somebody else, but I think a lot of people they do the same thing. Keep hitting the refrigerator. You go in there, oh, it's all the same stuff in there, but you end up finding something. Or going in the cupboard and scarfing down a couple of Nutty Buddies or a bag of chips or something like that. And it was just initially, I think it was making better choices. You know, you know, So if I was going to have a snack, have something a little healthier. Instead of having a bag of chips or having two bags of chips, have one bag of chips. When I say two bags, I mean two. Of the two small bags or whatever, or even or just have less chips. And then eventually the chips kind of go away. Same thing with the nutty bars, and then making better choices. Maybe switching from a candy bar to a protein bar. You know, switching from drinking. Maybe some people might drink a lot of those flavored coffees and drinks and stuff like that. That wasn't really my thing. I'm not really a coffee drinker or anything like that, but probably I've been kind of doing a protein coffee now, but that's actually kind of a new thing, just to get some caffeine and protein in without adding sugar and milk and stuff like that. It's actually pretty good, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, I mean, just making better choices, smaller portions. I mean, and then a big thing for me was just changing, my proteins. So you can get a lot more mileage out of say like a chicken breast or a lean piece of meat than you can, a fatty piece of meat, like like a fatty pork chop or something like that. And I'm not saying not to eat pork because you can, but it's just, I think the cuts of meat probably have a lot to do with it. Um, so I just try to make healthier choices in that way, you know, backing off, on, eating, a big, huge, portion of mashed potatoes or stuffing or things like that, that I tend to like, going with a vegetable instead, a nice healthy vegetable, whether it's asparagus or green beans or whatever you like. And now, I find it very interesting because, where before I would always, sit down at a plate and go after the protein or the fatty choice first. Now, or the carb choice, like I dig right into the mashed potatoes and gravy or something like that. Now I find myself, being, eating my vegetables first, and then I end up eating, the meat or whatever it is last. For what I don't know what changed in me, metabolically, but I seem to gravitate towards that more. Not that I don't eat, as you know, I do eat a lot of protein, but I don't find myself repulsed by by the healthy stuff like I did before.
Yeah. And so for you, Ron, it sounds like it wasn't, some folks are sort of all or nothing. They just kind of hit that light switch and then it's like a complete overnight change in their routine or what they're eating. But for you, it sounds like it was more gradual, kind of cutting out the
A
junk,
progression,
smaller
a progression.
portion.
Well, I used to do the light switch thing, and it never worked. 2 weeks in, I just, throw in the towel, and I'd be back to, I make the beeline. I used to like to say, my car, it would almost automatically turn left or right into whatever fast food place I was going by. If I was going by KFC, I'd all of a sudden like find myself in the drive-through ordering a 3-piece extra crispy with double mashed potatoes and corn or something like, and like, now, I mean, I'm at a point where I don't eat fast food. I mean, if I do go to McDonald's, it's just to get, because I have, my grandkids, get them, maybe a McFlurry or, an order of fries or something like that. And, I will charge them the grandpa tax. I'll grab a
Yeah.
couple of fries out of the box or something like that. But I stop there. That's the end of it. Or like after school when I pick the girls up, I'll stop and get them a couple of donuts, a couple times a week or whatever. And I might have a bite of one of the kids' donuts or something like that. But that's it, one bite. I don't. I'm not going to sit there and down a dozen donuts or a half dozen donuts. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you started making some healthy changes. You're, eating healthier, eating more veggies, less junk, less going out to eat. How quickly did it take for you to realize that, hey, this is actually making a difference?
Well, I think if my memory serves me, I think probably. I mean, I was quite heavy when I started, so you tend to lose bigger chunks fast. But I think, if I remember correctly, I think like the first week that I started making changes and exercising at the same time, or actually not even exercising, I take that back. Just making changes. I think like the first week I lost like 13 pounds.
Wow,
you know,
awesome.
and that was still, having, I was still eating things that I liked, and I'm still eating things that I like, but just, making those changes. So 13 pounds, and then, maybe the next week was 7 pounds. I mean, within a month, I already dropped 30 pounds.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing, and then you have plateaus, and then you have to make some adjustments, whether it's, adding in exercise or whatever. But what happens is at some point, you start feeling better, and again, you're able to do more things. You start getting smaller. You start feeling more comfortable. I mean, I'm not going to lie. At, between 450 and 500 pounds, there is no exercise that's really comfortable. You know, everything is a challenge. So, but you just keep pushing forward. You just keep, and not everybody's gonna have that kind of a problem. Some people that are watching this, might again, need to lose 50 pounds, but it's always that first step. It's just making the little incremental changes, and then you just keep changing as you go along, and then not everybody wants to be in the in incredible shape. Some people just want to be you know, in better shape, and and have their pants fit better and their clothes fit better, and be healthier. Whether it's lowering their cholesterol, or or if they're heavy and they're becoming diabetic, whatever the case may be, making the adjustments. But it all starts with that first step in the right direction. And you just kind of keep on working at it, and don't be discouraged.
For sure. Now, Ron, one thing I wanted to ask you is just while we're talking about diet, how much of your weight gain would you attribute to things inside of your, control, right? Versus, lots of people will say, well, the food we're eating now is getting worse and worse and worse. Companies are intentionally making people fat by putting in all these chemicals. They're making food addictive. It's not really your fault if you're heavy. You're predisposed to it. There's, maybe genetics plays a role, right? Like I guess really the question is, how much of this would you think is, do you lean more towards kind of personal responsibility? No,
Absolutely.
okay,
I'll stop.
versus,
I'll stop you
okay,
right there. You know, while I do agree that like the high fructose corn syrups and a lot of the different dyes they're putting in foods are affecting people metabolically. There's a lot of things, but which again goes back to the fact that I've largely eliminated processed foods. I mean, and even with that, I mean that then it comes down to budget too, because I mean. Uh, it's affordability. What can you afford to eat? I tend to and I'll give Aldi a plug here. I tend towards mostly grass fed meats. I try so I try to get my fat my fat profiles with good healthier fats, as opposed to like a corn fed red meat or something like that. Try to avoid, like, try to go organic as much as possible with everything. Uh, but yeah, definitely. I mean, there's probably some percentage of that has to do with things I was eating, but ultimately, who's the guy putting it you know, in his mouth? It was me. I was the guy who was opening the package and decided to eat this crap. And so I had to make the decision not to. And that's not to say that there is that. I mean, I'm not going to get into like a whole conspiracy theory thing of what the what the government is doing or not doing or whatever. But ultimately, the the responsibility, I think, is on the individual to make better choices. I mean, you can blame anybody you want, and that's you know something that that I really I strongly believe. Everybody likes to point the finger at something else and to try to shirk the responsibility or deflect, and so it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Well, I mean, to some degree, you're dealing with the hand you're dealt, but but at some point you got to kind of put on your big boy pants and just say, you know what, you know I have to make better choices. And, even if those choices are constrained by budget, you could still make better choices.
yeah,
You know,
I think,
and,
yeah,
and instead of eating, uh, you know, chocolate, rice, Krispies or whatever,
yeah, yeah,
for breakfast. I mean, stuff that may or may not have been healthier when I was a kid, which was a long time ago. But instead of eating that stuff, make a healthier choice. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, I don't eat cereal. I know you mentioned that you have some protein cereals and stuff like that. Even that, I won't touch it. My breakfast is. I mean, what did I have for breakfast today? I was kind of in a hurry. I had a doctor's appointment. I had I had a protein coffee, had a scoop of whey protein isolate in there, some collagen peptides, no sweetener. It was a flavored coffee, pumpkin, and with a I had a an apple and a couple hard boiled eggs, and I was out the door. That's maybe not the perfect breakfast, but it's a heck of a lot better than maybe stopping at IHOP and knocking down a stack of pancakes and with bacon and sausage on the side. It's which is something I may well have done 5 years ago, or probably did
Right.
more frequently than I should have.
Yeah. No, I that makes a lot of sense, Ron. I mean, from my perspective, nature is definitely a thing. Your genetics are a thing. The environment is a thing, and but ultimately, we have free will, right? And so it may be harder for some people due to their genetics or due to their environment or due to financial constraints, like you're saying. But ultimately, you do have free will, and I think it's like you said, you kind of play the hand you're dealt, and it's up to you to try to overcome those obstacles, right? And
Absolutely. I mean,
and
Brandon, I'm probably, I would say I am genetically predisposed to gain weight easily. I would say there is some genetic aspect there. I mean, looking at me now, I don't look like a mesomorph, somebody who's like, I look more like an ectomorph, with my current physique, the way I'm, built. Yeah, I have relatively a pretty small waist and a, pretty big upper body, proportionally. Um, but, obviously I can gain weight. I mean, you don't get to 545, 40 pounds without having, a problem. There's some people that could eat all the stuff that I ate and never even come close to that. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people, so I do have to keep an eye on it. Other people, might end up more in the dad bod, category from eating poorly. For me, it just, it snowballs, and I have to be careful.
yeah, that makes sense. Ron, let me ask you this. What's your thought on either weight loss surgery or, there's a whole new line of medications coming out, right? Like these GLP-1 agonists, appetite suppressants, and so on. What's your thought on that, especially for somebody who's morbidly obese and is it could be a matter of life and death, right? Like you were in that situation. What's your thoughts on some of these newer therapies?
I I mean, I'm not, my experience, and I have family members that have had gastric sleeve surgeries and whatnot. Um, I think, and see, the thing is with those surgeries, uh, and I had considered one at one point. I was desperate. I really, then it was interesting because I was actually going through the process that they put you through, as far as insurance for weight loss surgery. Um, I was, seeing some sort of dietitian or something like that, to try to get things on track or whatever. And I think at some point I was going to have to go see either a psychiatrist or a psychologist, something like that, to see if I was in the right mental space to do this. And they wanted you to get down to a certain weight. I forget how much what the percentage of body weight you were supposed to lose before you could do the surgery. And I so but I ended up making the changes, manually, things that I wanted to do. And then I realized, I said, you know what, I don't need to do this. I said, at that point, I think I got the weight that I had to get to before they would allow me to get the surgery. I believe it was like 420 pounds, if I remember correctly. And I kind of shot right past that on the downward, trajectory. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that because my concern with that, and it may work for some people, but the problem is with those surgeries, they really restrict you nutritionally because you end up you know uh, a lot of people end up with hair loss and different deficiencies, and they have the whole. laundry list of issues. And then the other thing is, other people tend to get those surgeries and find a way around it. Like they'll end up drinking their calories, going to get those drinks that I mentioned, or stopping at the smoothie shop and getting something that's loaded with sugar. And I'm doing something healthy, and next thing you know, their weight starts to go up, and before you know it, they're bigger than they were before the surgery. And now what do you do? You know,
Mm,
now so I think maybe for the right person, I mean, it would work. I personally, I'm not a fan. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, I think in some cases it probably works. It didn't work. It wouldn't have worked for me, but and then you mentioned the GLP-1 type of medications and stuff like that. I think those have a place. I think there's definitely some science behind that. I mean, again, I know people that are using those and using them successfully. I think as with anything else, it's relatively new. We still don't know all of the long-term effects of these medications. I mean, I think it was something that was just come upon. A lot of these medications are basically are modified, or they're diabetes treatment medications that they're using. And they end up suppressing appetite. Change. I'm not really certain as far as changing people's metabolic rates or anything like that, but it seems to have that sort of effect. And I think again, it definitely works for some people. But from what I've seen, the people that I know that have gotten them, use them, they tend to lose a lot. It seems like they're losing a lot of muscle mass along with so that tells me that they're uh, not probably eating right. They're probably really limiting their protein intake and whatnot, and they're not certainly not exercising. So you end up, I think you end up losing muscle mass, maybe bone density. And again, this is speculation on my part. I don't have any hard science behind it, just from what I've seen. Um, I just think that you know if you can do it, you know the good old fashioned way, I think that's the way to do it. I mean, it might take you a little longer, but in the end, you're forming good habits. And what my dad used to say at the end of this, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And I think the same thing carries true with what we're talking about here. Once you learn how to eat properly and what works for your body, there's nobody can take that knowledge away from you. you know so I think taking the time to figure it out, and make the right choices, and get help, get help from people that have experience, whether they're trained nutritionists or somebody who's walked that path. Get some help, and try to do it the good old fashioned way first. That would be my that's I mean that's what I did, and it's worked for
yeah.
me, and I've never looked back. I don't regret it for a minute. I'm glad I didn't get one of those surgeries, because the problem is now you've got a stomach the size of a walnut. you know what do I mean, my protein intake is relatively high, which lends itself to the muscle mass that I'm trying to accomplish. And as you know, the more muscle you add to your frame, the more you increase your metabolism, the leaner you can get. I mean, I'm already at a pretty lean point. I really don't need to get any leaner. I'm good where I am, but um, you know, if I wanted to add more muscle and wanted to lose more body fat, I could do that. Whereas if I had the size of my stomach, uh, you know, restricted down to that big, I'm going to be very limited what I can eat. And the problem is too, when you get on a really calorie restrictive diet, and I'm sure you've experienced this, I think you hit plateaus. Your body is just always looking for ways to hang on to weight. So you can get down to 1,000 calories a day and just not lose any weight. I mean, it's just the body's a really funny thing. I mean, it's always looking for for me, I'm always looking for ways to trick my body into doing what I want it to do. Because if I continue on the same thing, it adapts. So I'm constantly trying to reshuffle the deck and keep my body guessing what I'm throwing at it, whether it's my workout routines or my diet or whatever. I'm always moving things around, and that's what keeps me, able to keep progressing.
Yeah, for sure. Now for your diet, Ron, are you following a certain type of diet? Is it, intermittent fasting, carnivore, keto? Is it what
I
what sort of
I
what sort of diet?
I definitely, yes. I mean, I definitely do intermittent fast. I mean, that's not how I got where I am. I mean, I actually started intermittent fasting. I believe I shared that with you last year when I had my first reconstructive surgery, getting my legs done, getting all the extra tissue removed from my legs. I started that to speed up the healing process. So I started probably maybe with a 12-hour fast and then bumped it up to about 18 to 19 hours. So basically my eating window now, and even that, I don't stick to an 18-hour fast or a 19-hour fast every day. Some days I'll eat in the morning, you know. So and it's never, never on the same day. I just, I'll switch it up. I might start eating early because you don't want your body to get into a routine where it knows when it's coming, so it just kind of your body's like basically planning for it, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So you've got to, you know, uh, and even cheat meals. I think cheat meals are important. You throw in a cheat meal here and there, it restarts your metabolism. Because you will find yourself, I mean, if you're still trying, if you're in a place where you're still trying to lose weight or you're still trying to do whatever, certainly when you're trying to lose weight, you want to have a cheat meal every now and again. The key is, to follow. If you do that cheat meal, follow it with a good meal. Don't do two cheat meals and three cheat meals and then a cheat week and then a cheat month. Before you know it, you're right back where you started. But it's good to switch it up.
And
But
how often would you do a cheat meal? Is it like once a week, once a month,
for me,
special
it's once
occasion?
for me it's once a week.
Once a week.
My wife and I'll go out for a nice dinner. And when I say cheat meal, I mean, like I don't typically during the week, like I don't eat fried food. You know what I mean? I mean, I like it, but I won't eat it. But if I go out on a Saturday night to dinner, I might get a nice plate of fried clams. I'll skip the French fries. I'll have a salad and a vegetable with it. Some broccoli or whatever. And instead of eating a whole basket of bread, I'll have one dinner roll with a pat of butter on it. Okay, I enjoyed that. Maybe get a bowl of chowder, or a bowl of soup, or something like that. And the next week it might be something different. It might be pizza, or it might be like maybe I mean, I eat steak a lot anyway, but get a nice piece of meat, maybe a ribeye or something like that, and a baked potato, and but so I might up my calories a little bit on that cheat meal, or I might eat something fried, or fish and chips, or something that would be out of the norm for me, but I allow myself to have that because if I don't, I'm gonna get bored and I'm gonna get miserable. Gives you
Yeah,
something to look forward to.
yeah, yeah. Obviously with the holidays, I've had, Christmas and New Year's, or of course, then we had Thanksgiving as well. So, I've definitely enjoyed it and have felt good that, I'm at a spot now where I feel like I can enjoy,
Exactly.
enjoy the holidays. I know for me, if I'm just starting dieting and if I try to do cheat meals too early, and then I see, hey, this week I didn't lose weight, for me, that's not worth it because I want to see a couple of weeks of progress, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Um,
you reward yourself, and the thing is, you're just gonna be careful because you have to be careful with that reward piece, because like I said, we tend to eat for different reasons. You might end up trying to make yourself feel better over maybe a business defeat or something. Something's going on in your life, and you go out for a big meal, or maybe you're celebrating a birthday and you go out for a big meal. So you're going to be careful with those, but you got to be able to weave those in there. But I agree, earn it. That's my thing. I work my tail
mm,
off. For me now, I work hard in the gym every day. You know my routine. You know what I'm. I mean, I've got the gym in the house now, so I don't actually go to a physical location anymore. I come downstairs to train, but I work hard here every day. So at the end of the week, I've earned that meal. that cheat meal, and that's it though. Saturday night or Sunday night, wherever it is, you know, the next day I'm right back at it. And it's not like I'm miserable with what I'm eating because I have my little treats during the week too. Like I said, I'll have 15 cheese balls or something like that. Or, there's certain little like protein bars that aren't too unhealthy that I like. I'll have one of those, a couple times a week or whatever. I'm pretty strict, but I allow myself that, uh, that luxury, I guess you could call it. You know what I mean? So that I can, continue doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, I like that. Earn it. That makes sense. So before I want to get into your training routine as well, because I learned a lot. And actually, I'm playing with bands and stuff now, so I want to get into that in a minute. But just to round out the diet piece, just give folks a sense of, in terms of, average calories, average protein, kind of number of meals a day. What do you at? Yeah, 3, 4 meals a day, 3,000 calories, 300 grams of protein. Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, right now, obviously, I'm 2 weeks out from surgery. I just had that major surgery, and so my calories are cut back significantly right now. I mean, for me, I'm about, you know, I'm around 225, 230 pounds. Currently, my current body weight. I'm at about 6 feet tall, and right now, because of my, relative matter of fact, is when we finish up the Zoom call, I can't really do my normal cardio routine or anything like that. So I'm going to go out and walk a few miles, just because, obviously, you want blood flow and whatnot after surgery. Um, but, so right now for me, I'm probably around 2,400 calories a day, thereabouts. And prior to that, with the high level of activity I do, training every day, I'm normally in the 35 to 3,700 calorie range. But that's gonna differ for everybody. Everybody has a different base metabolic rate, so it's something that you have to work with, and it's something that you discover. So I for me, I kind of figured it out using, maybe some different tools, apps and whatnot, and then adjust from there. Okay. So, okay, if I'm at this, at this calorie intake with this number of, this number of grams of protein, this number of, grams of carbs, this grams of fat. Okay. And what happens? Okay. So I do that for, for a week. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not, so you got, or maybe 2 weeks, you got to have a decent sample size to figure out if it's working for you, right? And that, now, I mean, I add to that, I'm checking my body fat composition, am I adding muscle? Am I losing muscle? Am I gaining body fat? That sort of thing, and that's not something somebody's going to be doing right off the bat. I mean, maybe, I mean, if they're really serious, they could, but, and that's how I know. I kind of play with the numbers and I figure out what's working for me. I mean, I know, without being too scientific, if I throw a lot of protein at the problem and, and cut back on carbs, and I have a very high fat diet, healthy fats, but I do eat a fair amount of healthy fats, and that works for me. I keep the carbs relatively low. I keep my muscle mass in check, and I tend to keep getting leaner and leaner. In terms of body fat. I mean, I've kind of like right now I'm obviously very puffy after the surgery. I think I shared with you, I've it was a big surgery, so I'm retaining a lot of extra water. I'm probably right now I'm about 15, 17 pounds heavier than I normally am. But a matter of fact, ironically, I got on the scale this morning and I lost about 8.5 pounds in 2 days, of
Wow.
which was just water because I'm feeling better. As I mentioned, I had that infection after post surgery infection. They got that dealt with, and so the water's starting to recede, and I'm starting to. Matter of fact, I woke up this morning and I could see you know pretty good vascularity in my forearms for the first time in a couple of weeks. So I'm starting to look more like myself, but I'm still 15, 16, 17 pounds heavier than I normally am, but that'll that'll work down. I'm not worried about it. It's not a body fat issue. It's a water issue, But
Yeah.
but yeah, the but that's how I've done it, So and the same thing on the flip side when my activity level goes up and I'm doing 1,000 calories a day in cardio and another 500 anaerobically lifting weights. Obviously I have to increase my calories and adjust accordingly because otherwise, I'm going to start breaking down muscle, start, releasing cortisol, all kinds of bad things could happen. You have to make sure you're eating enough because, in other words, you're not going to do all that and do it and not add building blocks to put on some lean body mass,
Yeah, and it sounds like it goes back to just what you said before of, you start with a certain number and then you need to give it a week, give it 2 weeks, give it some time, right, to see what does that actually do, right? Are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
losing weight? If
you don't want to be reactionary because you might see a bump in weight, or one in one direction or the other. Just give it a chance because you're as you know your body. I mean, if you were to weigh yourself every day, your weight's going to fluctuate every day. It just does. I mean, I'll go out for that cheat meal on a Saturday night and I'll be 5 pounds heavier the next day. And that used to bug me. Used to really upset me. Now I'm like, it's par for the course. I know it's going to happen. I'm not worried about it. You know, come a couple days into the week, I'll be back to normal weight, and then I'll be fine the rest of the week. And if I go up 3, 4, 5 pounds due to that, for me that's maybe I eat a lot of salt. It's causing me to retain some water or whatever. It just happens. I'm aware of it. I know it's going to happen, and it doesn't trouble me.
That makes sense. All right, let's switch gears. Let's get into training. And this is one thing I love talking to you about. I'm always feel like I'm learning something, or you're trying something new, or you got a new setup, and then I want to try a new setup. And I've been working out with bands lately, especially for my arms, my biceps and triceps. And I
And how's it
have,
working for you?
I really enjoy it. You have that and then you were telling me about this, but that muscle stabilization that when
Oh,
you're using the
excellent.
bands that you don't get for whatever reason when you're using a barbell or dumbbells, and you just get this pump.
Yeah, you
And
get what's that wobble? It's that wobble you get with the bands. It's just you don't get that with the because the weight is it's linear coming from whatever direction it's coming from with the band. You grab a band and you stretch it and it's you're just getting increasing resistance the more you stretch the band, and you don't get that. In other words, it's a very the strength curve is completely different. So I love bands for that reason, and I don't train with them exclusively. I still use free weight for a lot of things, like deadlifts and and dumbbell presses and whatnot. But like I like what you were doing there, adding bands to the bench press with so it's kind of a hybrid. That's a really I like that a lot.
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
one
they're
thing that
great.
I got for the bench two run is and it's sort of similar to bands. It's a little bit it's got a little different feel, but is chains. So you can add that to the bench. And then when you're, when you're racking the weight or lifting it off the arms, right? It's the chains are all the way extended. So you've got all the weight of the chains. And then when you bring it down closer to your chest, now part of the chain is resting on the ground. And so
Right.
it's less weight on the bar as you're bringing the bar to your chest. And so, like you said, it kind of inverts that strength curve and lets you kind of
Right.
work through maybe a heavier weight than you could normally work through.
You're still getting
Um,
that heavy weight at the top of the rep. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Now, for me, I mean, again, I'm much older than you are, and my joints are very compromised. I've got issues with my shoulders. I've got issues with my knees. I've got issues with everything, pretty much. So I tend towards, and I like high rep training. I just I find that I get better results. I mean, and I'm not training for absolute size. A lot of guys will go that low rep heavy weight routine, and and not that I would for me that's kind of in the rearview mirror. I prefer at this stage of my life, but I will go lower rep days, but I like to train with high reps, and depending on on what body part I'm doing. Um, just movements, and where I'm really, just tiring, tiring the muscle out. The thing about high for me, I'm training more for more than size, for endurance and strength, and the high rep, routines give that to me. You know what I mean? Because in other words, it allows you. I think it's more usable strength. Um, for day to day activities, especially as you get older. I'm nearing 60. Uh, and I just don't tire. I mean, like when I work out with my grandson, he's 15, he's on the track team, and we'll do something together, like, well, I'll do what I call 30-30s. I'll do 30-second interval on the assault bike, and then jump down on the floor and bang out 30 push-ups. And a few sets into that, he's blacking out, and I'm 45 years older than he is, roughly, and I'm fine. You know what I mean? He's like, grandpa, what the heck? Why am I seeing spots and you're just fine? I don't understand. But that's the thing. Training the way I do, it's giving me that usable strength, where, like, if I'm out doing something, like if I'm at, setting up at church, walking back and forth, carrying chairs and tables, I'm not going to get tired like the next guy, because I've got that long term endurance. Whether I'm doing, squatting, for instance. I don't squat with 500 or 600 pounds anymore. I'll squat with 225, 255, 275, but I'll crank out, 20, 25, 30 reps. So doing that, I'm still building the strength of my legs, or even the leg extension, leg curls, whatever. I'll go a lightweight, high rep. Just keep going and going and going and going and going. And a lot of guys will probably say that's insane, but it works. I've gained muscle size. I've gain lots of endurance. I have all kinds of, I just don't get tired. That. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I can
Yeah.
train and train and train and not, I don't get out of breath. I mean, I could be doing a full sprint on my assault bike, or, cranking away on the climber, at a high level, level 17, level 18, whatever, you know what I mean? And hold a normal conversation with my wife while I'm doing it, and it's, my heart rate's, spiking, for my age, it's up to 150, but I'm able to hold the conversation and breathe and do whatever, and I'm just not exhausted. Whereas, I mean, forget it, 3 or 4 years ago, they would have been calling 911. but,
Yeah.
that's kind of the impetus behind the way I train.
Yeah. I was just thinking that's incredible considering you were, 540 pounds and now kind of look at where you're at. In terms of your routine, Ron, so can you just walk me through just a typical week? Like, is Monday chest day and Tuesday cardio and Wednesday deadlift, or what does that look like? And then you said you split up your cardio too. You doing that every day, every other day? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, I tend to do cardio probably 6 days a week, but I do split it. For me right now, well, right now I'm not doing any cardio because of the surgery, but I tend to do about 45 minutes of cardio a day. So I'll do like 22 minutes in the morning, 23 minutes in the afternoon. So I might do like and again, this is kind of, advanced. Like I'll do 5 or 6 5-minute intervals of hit training, which is, if I don't know I know you're familiar with it, but Tabata training. So 20 minutes as hard as 20 seconds as hard as I can go, followed by 10 minutes of going easy, and then repeat. So you do 5 or 6 of those, and that's quite a workout. Now, in the afternoon, if I've done hit training in the morning, I might do steady state. Switch it up. You know what I mean? Where I'm just training, I'll jump on the climbing machine and just put it on, like fat burn setting or rolling hills or something like that. And it's still a little bit of an interval, but I'll just do 23 minutes, and just follow the peaks and valleys of whatever it's throwing at me, as opposed to, like, really blasted away. So where with the hit training, my heart rate will drop, maybe down to 100 in between, then spike back up to 150 at the peak of that 20-second blast. and then just it's kind of up and down. So it's just two different ways of training. And again, that goes back to switching it up and not letting my body get comfortable with one thing, you know. But yeah, usually I'll hit, I'll do something like that in the morning and then something like that in the afternoon, and in between, um, I'll do, like let's say Monday is chest day, and I switch it up. I'm always moving them around and whatnot. Again, because I don't want my body to get into any kind of a rhythm where it's expecting to do something, which I mean, it probably kind of sounds silly, but I find that when I switch it up, I just get better results. So, like let's say, Sunday I threw in a bicep workout. Monday might be chest. Then I'll go back to a pull exercise. On Tuesday I'll train back. Wednesday, I might do a leg routine. Um, uh, Thursday, might be shoulders. And maybe throw some triceps in there with it. Um, and then Friday, it might, I might just switch it up, or maybe just take a day off from lifting and just do cardio that day. If I've got Bible study on a given night, I might not, or something, a doctor's appointment, whatever. I might take a day off midweek and move it along. But the key thing here is, uh, while I do take days off, I never miss a body part. Unless I'm injured, like if I, like say I injure my shoulder, for instance, I've got a rotator, cuff, issue with my shoulder, you know, and my shoulders really bother me. I might skip shoulders that week, and just move on, let it recover, do something else, and maybe that day, I'll hit the rowing machine, I'll switch to that, and do 20, 25, 30 minutes, on the roll machine. I might do intervals on the roll machine. I might do steady state on that, whatever, I'm feeling like doing, I don't have any set hard fast. The only thing I do try to insist on, sans injury, I try to hit every body part at least once a week. And sometimes I'll hit legs twice a week because they are a bigger muscle. And, with my knee problems and whatnot, like I might, first leg workout during the week might be squats. The squats, leg extensions, leg curls, maybe some sort of lunge or something like that. And the second time, I might do a Bulgarian split squat, which is I think you're familiar with what that is. Where you've got one leg up and you're doing it with a dumbbell in one hand, and I do them asymmetrically, and I do a lot of that too. I do a lot of asymmetrical training, where like if I'm doing and I shared that with you, where if I'm doing say like dumbbell presses or incline dumbbell presses or Arnold presses or whatever, instead of doing them both arms at the same time, I'll do them single arm, and left, right, left, right, left, right. And I like that because it's really I find a lot of benefit for core strength. It builds my abdominals, my obliques, everything, same thing. Like, if I'm throwing in, I'll do some straight leg deadlifts, on back day. I'm always trying to strengthen my core because that's a big, you need it. That's, you strengthen your core, especially, I've got, some back issues and whatnot. I've got a couple of herniated discs in my lower back. So keeping that core strong allows me to walk around, pain free with my back. I mean, I'll have a sore back every now and again if I overdo it, but I'm never incapacitated like where before, where I'd be walking around hunched over and stuff like that. I've strengthened my back, back to the point where, even with the back injuries, I don't have back problems.
That makes sense. And it sounds like Ron, you're at the point now where you're not trying to set, one rep maxes anymore or
No,
anything like
no.
that. You're really just working out so you can be strong, so you can be healthy, so you can move around, so you can feel good, and like you said, have that endurance.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I look good. I feel good. I can wear the clothes that I want to wear now, and feel comfortable. No one look at me. If I wear a tighter fitting sweater, that I don't look like a sausage in it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah,
in
that's
or a t-shirt or whatever, I mean, that's, not that that's everything, but, I've earned it. I've worked hard for it, and it's a nice feeling to be able to wear nice clothes and and dress the way I want to dress, and being an older man, I want to carry this fitness into my 60s, 70s, and God willing, however long he's determined that I'm going to stay on this earth, I'd like to be fit right up till the time that that I close my eyes for the last time. That would be great if I could manage that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So Ron, what advice would you give to somebody? We talked about the diet, we talked about kind of your training routine and where you're at now. Somebody who's just going to get started with exercising, what do you recommend they do?
Um, I mean, what I did worked. Just start doing what you can do. And first of all, just try to get a basic working knowledge of what machines, what exercises work, what body part, and hopefully moving forward, as we figure this out, I can maybe, put some pointers out there or whatever so people will know, for instance, if you're gonna, train chest, I mean, I love dumbbells, I've got my power block dumbbells right there. I've had those for a long time, and that's an integral part of my training. I like them because, I really don't need a training partner. I don't have to worry about getting buried with a heavy bench press. If I have to drop them, I can drop them. Not that I want to, but you know, uh, they're just so useful. I mean, even if somebody didn't want to go to the gym, if they got a nice set of adjustable dumbbells, you can and a bench, you can accomplish a lot. You can train pretty much everything. I mean, okay, you want to train biceps, you could do hammer curls, you could do goblet curls, you can do reverse curls. You can, train your forearms with them. You can, you want to train shoulders. You can do, lateral raises, front raises, side raises, rear delt flies. I mean, the list goes on and on. Triceps, skull crushers, overheads. You can use the bench for different things. You can do, bench dips, to work your triceps. I love calisthenics. I love I do a lot of body weight exercise. I do a ton of dips. I do a lot of push-ups. I don't really do a ton of ab work anymore. I really let the asymmetrical aspect of my routine take care of that. I mean, I'll throw crunches in every now and again, but I don't really find them necessary. I think my abdominal strength is fine just what I'm doing. And I think it just puts a lot of undue strain on your back and whatnot, doing that type of stuff as well. Whereas, when you're training your abdominals, doing asymmetrical stuff, you're kind of you're just inadvertently flexing those muscles, and you'll feel it. If you and, asymmetrical, single arm. So if I'm sitting here doing a single arm dumbbell press, pressing the weight up over my head, now I'm destabilizing my body, and I'm forcing my body to compensate for it. What am I using? I'm using all those core muscles. So you're just by nature of what you're doing, you're you're implementing all those core muscles. I like, for back. As I set up that my little cable system here. I love, seated rows. I love, lat pull downs. Overhead. For triceps, I'll use the overhead cable, and even something like that. You don't need a big machine. I mean, if you have a way to, attach a couple pulleys, like that, in your basement, you've got yourself a decent cable machine, and it works really well. I have just as good success with this as anything that I've ever used in the gym.
Yeah, I love that setup. And I think, for me, the takeaway is you can do a lot with just dumbbells.
Oh,
You can do a lot
absolutely.
with, a set of dumbbells. If you get a bench, but even just push-ups, even just starting going for a walk. You know what I mean? It's again, it
Right.
goes back to
Like I
what
told you,
can you
when
do?
when I get up, when I'm done with you here, I'm heading right out. It's a little cold out. It's snowing out a little bit. It's probably in the 40s. I'll put my warm coat on, throw my hat and gloves on. I'm gonna go out and walk 2 or 3 miles at a brisk pace. That there's no shame in that. You're burning calories, you're getting in better shape. For me, it's allowing me to stay in shape and to just to keep myself going during this downtime. I'm probably not going to be able to get back to serious training until mid-February, but with the right supplementation, the right diet, and I'm throwing in a little. I'll hit the climbing machines, a little bit here and there and whatnot, at a low level right now because I don't want to stress my system. I'm still recovering, but yeah, I mean, just that you're just doing that. If even if you just went out for a walk, and even if you couldn't do like a full push up, if you could do a push up from your knees, start with that. There's nothing. You know, Doing something is always better than doing nothing. That's
Mm,
the bottom line. That's what I would say. Because when I did nothing, nothing happened. Well, something happened. I kept getting bigger, but that's not what I wanted to happen. So when you start being proactive and you start being consistent, that's the thing I preach. Whether I'm talking to my son or I'm talking to you, the word you probably hear come out of my mouth most often is consistency. Everything I do is consistent. I eat consistently. I train consistently. I try to sleep consistently as much as I can. I try to drink consistently. I drink a lot of water every day. I mean, I drink probably on an average day between, a gallon and a half, sometimes 2 gallons a day, which unfortunately means a lot of bathroom trips. But I'm flushing all the toxins out of my system. I'm keeping myself healthy. And that's a big thing too. I drink a lot of water. And sometimes I get bored with water and I'll throw some Crystal Light in or whatever. It's probably not the best thing in the world for you, but it's better than drinking high octane Coca Cola or Pepsi or whatever the crap. And even juices. I mean, juices are okay. I don't. I stay away from like orange juice and apple juice and stuff like that. It's all empty calories. I just avoid it. I mean,
yeah.
some people might like to have a glass of juice at breakfast, and if I go out to breakfast with my wife, I might get a juice. You know what I mean? But it's not a daily thing. That would be more of a you know uh,
Like a treat.
a treat. Yeah,
Yeah.
glass rather than something that I where I'm swigging out of the jug every day.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was first, starting to pay attention to calories. I mean, I thought, like a lot of people, I think juice is healthy because it's natural, right? I mean, you take an orange, you squeeze it. I mean, that's the juice, right? But
Right.
it's got a lot of sugar, it's got a lot of calories, and that can add up quick. Like a
Well, yeah.
one 8-ounce glass of orange juice is what, 100 calories or something
Yeah,
like that.
100,
So,
120 calories, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I haven't drank it. I haven't looked at it so long, I couldn't even tell you. But I definitely I avoid it because it's all empty calories. I don't care what anybody tells you. It's you drink a couple 3 glasses of juice a day. Now, okay, let's say it is 120 calories per serving, which I'm not 100% certain on. So let's say you had a couple big glasses of orange juice. Now you just blew 400 and plus calories on a drink that you could have put into a protein meal. Like for instance, for lunch today, I had an 8-ounce burger that I made in my air fryer. It was delicious. Put a little salt, a little pepper, a little garlic. Um, put a slice of cheese on top of it. You know, 93% lean, grass-fed ground beef. Put it on a low-carb wrap with a piece of cheese, a little bit of ketchup, just to give it a little bit of taste. Beautiful. 61 grams of protein. You know,
mm,
how do and not a ton of fat, and the fat that it did have was healthy fat. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I mean, I enjoyed that hamburger.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and for dessert, I had an apple, a nice Macintosh apple, which I love, and I had a little nut roll protein bar from Aldi, which is probably 140 calories. So I had a nice healthy lunch that I was comfortable with, and I wasn't hungry, and you know there you go. It's I'll have it's getting a little late right now, but I'll have a decent dinner. I might have a piece of chicken with a vegetable and maybe a little sweet potato or something like that. Whatever.
Yeah, and I think for me, and you hit on this, is I think if you can have a meal where it's satisfying, it's nutritious, and it's convenient, man, I mean, you hit all three. It's like you're actually eating something healthy and you're enjoying it. And you make these little swaps, like you were saying, right? It's like, instead of having the higher fat cut of beef or hamburg, you get the lower fat. Instead of having, on a regular bun, you have a carb-friendly wrap.
Right.
You make these little adjustments, but it adds up, you
Yep. Oh,
know.
yeah. Well, that wrap, for instance, instead of me putting it on a hamburger bun, which is probably about or a bulky roll, let's say 150 calories, probably like 35 grams of carbs or something like that. I put it on that wrap. I enjoyed it just as much. Had a nice slice of not even non-fat, just regular American cheese, and I'm sure some guys will poo-poo with that, but whatever. I enjoyed it. It was healthy, and no guilt, no shame, and I've still got six hundred change calories left. For my daily expenditure. I could still have a nice meal. Matter of fact, instead of chicken, I might have a piece of salmon tonight. You know, with a potato or a vegetable or something like that. When I'll look at my macros where I'm at for the day, and I'll figure it out. For that last meal. But for me, and another thing, I wanted to throw in there too. I can't, and I think you guys have one. My air fryer.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I absolutely love the air fryer. Probably one of the best fitness investments I've ever made. Use it every single day, whether I'm preparing fish or if I'm making shrimp in it or a hamburger or whatever, chicken, you name it. Like you said, convenient. It's quick. You know, you don't have to heat up an oven. You're not making a mess on the stove. I'll matter of fact, my air fryer, I've got one of those pull-out drawer type ones. I'll put a piece of Pyrex in there, whatever I'm making, and I don't even worry about if there's a little extra fat in it or whatever. Like that burger I made today. I just pulled the burger up, the fat's on the bottom of the Pyrex. I just wash it out. It's done. So
Right.
now I don't even have to clean the air fryer. You know what I mean? So that just took one more little step out of my day to save me another 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So I could do something else.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, Ron, let me just do a quick time check here. It's 7:25. I'm happy to keep going, but I know you've got stuff to do. You tell me. Do you want to keep going? You want to schedule a part two? I feel like I could talk for hours on this stuff, but
Let's do a part two because I'm definitely getting a little hungry now, and I need to get my walk in, and I've got some maintenance things with this my surgery that I need to deal with. But I would love to do a part two of this, and we can talk more. That'll be wonderful.
yeah, that sounds awesome. I've got a ton of, like I said, I could go all day, but I'll also say for folks listening to this, hopefully we get this posted to YouTube soon. If there's stuff you want to hear, how Ron did certain things, if you want to hear what's his supplement stack like, right? What more details on his specific workout routine or diet or how he got started or anything you should see his home gym, all the different things he's got set up, the pulley system. Let us know in the comments, right? What it is you guys would be interested to learn more about. And we'll definitely take that into account as well. But
Yeah, I
Ron,
would. I'd be happy to share all of that. I mean, whatever I can do to help. I want other people to be successful. To be able to get their life back. That's essentially what I've done. I went from not having a life to having a very full and productive life, and I'm blessed. I'm really really, and I would love to share that with people and how to do that.
that's awesome. And I'll post the pictures as well. You guys won't believe. I mean, the transformation. I mean, to hear Ron talk about it is one thing, but when you guys see the pictures, it's my mind was blown. So we'll get those posted as well. But Ron, enjoy your walk, enjoy your dinner. I'll shoot you over a link when I've got something ready for you to review, and we'll get this out there, and then we'll schedule a part two.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate your time. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, Ron. We'll do it again soon. Take care.
Me as well. You as well, Brandon. Great seeing you. Talk to you
All
soon.
right.
Okay.
God bless.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. God bless you.